The morning sun streamed through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the kitchen. I sat at the table nursing my coffee, watching Hannah as she moved around the room, her movements stiff and mechanical. There was a tension in the air, a sense of unease that hung between us like a heavy fog. Finally, unable to bear the silence any longer, I spoke up. "Is everything okay, Hannah?" She paused, her hands frozen midair as she poured herself a cup of tea. "Yeah, I'm fine," she replied, her voice lacking its usual warmth. I frowned, studying her carefully. Something wasn't right. "You seem distant lately," I ventured, choosing my words carefully. Anna sighed, setting her cup down with a clatter. "It's just wedding stressed, you know?" she said, her tone strained. But I wasn't convinced. This felt different, deeper somehow. "Is it really just that?" I pressed, my concern growing by the minute. Hannah hesitated, her eyes flickering away from mine. "There's something I need to talk to you about," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. My heart skipped a beat. I could sense the gravity of her words, the weight they carried. "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "I think we should consider an open relationship," she said, her words hanging in the air like a heavy cloud. I felt as though the ground had been pulled out from beneath me. An open relationship. The thought sent a chill down my spine. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Anna met my gaze, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and uncertainty. "I've been thinking about it for a while," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I love you, but I need more. I need to explore, to experience new things." My mind raced, trying to make sense of what she was saying. The woman I loved, the woman I was planning to spend the rest of my life with, was proposing something that went against everything I believed in. "But what about us?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Hannah reached out, taking my hand in hers. "I don't want to lose what we have," she said softly. "But I also don't want to feel trapped, confined to a life that doesn't fulfill me." I pulled my hand away, my mind swirling with conflicting emotions. How could she even suggest such a thing? The thought of sharing her with someone else tore me apart inside. "I need some time to think," I said finally, my voice barely steady. And with that, I pushed back my chair and left the kitchen, leaving Hannah alone with her thoughts. As I walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed, that our relationship would never be the same again. The days that followed Hannah's proposal were filled with a tumult of emotions. Doubts and insecurities gnawed at me, eating away at the foundation of our relationship like termites in rotting wood. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't enough for her, that somehow I had failed to meet her needs. As I went about my daily routine, the image of Hannah with another man haunted my thoughts. Was I not handsome enough? Was I not successful enough? Questions without answers swirled in my mind, tormenting me day and night. One evening, as Hannah and I sat in awkward silence, the weight of my doubts became too much to bear. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice barely audible above the ticking of the clock. Hannah looked up from her book, her eyes filled with concern. "Of course," she replied, setting her book aside. "What's on your mind?" I hesitated, unsure of how to put my thoughts into words. "I can't stop thinking about what you said," I admitted, my voice barely steady. "About the open relationship." Hannah's expression softened, sympathy flickering in her eyes. "I know it's a lot to process," she said gently. "But I meant what I said. I love you, but I need more." Her words cut through me like a knife, reopening wounds I thought had healed. "But why?" I asked, my voice tinged with desperation. "What's wrong with what we have?" Hannah reached out, taking my hand in hers. "It's not that there's anything wrong," she said softly. "It's just, I don't want to feel trapped. I want the freedom to explore, to experience new things." I pulled my hand away, a wave of anger and resentment washing over me. "So what? I'm not enough for you," I snapped, my voice tinged with bitterness. Hannah's eyes filled with tears, her voice barely above a whisper. "No, that's not what I meant," she said, her words heavy with regret. I don't know what I want anymore." And with that, she retreated into herself, leaving me alone with my thoughts. As I lay awake that night, the doubts and insecurities swirling around me like a storm, I knew that our relationship had reached a crossroads. And I feared that no matter which path we chose, the damage had already been done. The tension between Hannah and me had reached its breaking point. Every interaction was fraught with unspoken words and lingering doubts. I couldn't continue to pretend that everything was okay when it clearly wasn't. So one evening, I decided to confront Hannah about her proposal for an open relationship. As we sat across from each other in our living room, The silence hung heavy in the air. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation that was about to unfold. Hannah, I began, my voice steady but tinged with urgency. We need to talk. She looked up from her phone, her expression guarded. What about? She asked, her tone cautious. I hesitated, trying to find the right words to express the turmoil raging inside me. I can't shake the feeling that something's not right. I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Ever since you brought up the idea of an open relationship, I've been feeling lost. Hannah's eyes widened, surprise flickering across her features. I didn't mean to upset you, she said, her voice tinged with regret. I thought it might be something we could explore together. But her words only fueled the fire burning inside me. How could you even suggest something like that? I demanded, my voice rising with anger. Do you not care about us at all? Hannah recoiled as if struck, her eyes filling with tears. Of course I care, she insisted, her voice trembling. But I also need to do what's best for me. I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. How could she be so selfish? How could she prioritize her own needs over the sanctity of our relationship? And what about my needs? I shot back, my voice tinged with bitterness. Do they not matter to you at all? But Hannah had no answer, her silence speaking volumes. And as we sat there, the gulf between us widening with each passing moment, I realized that our relationship might be beyond repair. No amount of talking or pleading could bridge the divide that now lay between us. And for the first time, I allowed myself to entertain the possibility that maybe, just maybe, it was time to let go. The days stretched on like an eternity, each one filled with tension and uncertainty. Anna and I tried to carry on as if nothing had changed. But the rift between us only grew wider with each passing moment. It became increasingly clear that our relationship was teetering on the edge of collapse, and something had to give. One evening, after yet another awkward dinner where conversation felt forced and hollow, I reached my breaking point. I couldn't continue to live in limbo, unsure of where we stood or what the future held. It was time to confront the harsh reality of our situation. As we sat across from each other in the dimly lit living room, the weight of our unspoken words hung heavy in the air. Hannah, I began, my voice steady but tinged with sorrow, we need to talk. She looked up from her plate, her expression guarded. What is it? She asked, her tone cautious. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. I can't do this anymore, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. Hannah's eyes widened in disbelief, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. What do you mean? She asked, her voice tinged with desperation. I felt a lump form in my throat as I struggled to find the right words. I mean that we're not working, I said, my voice tinged with sadness. We're not compatible, and we both know it. Tears welled up in Hannah's eyes, her bottom lip trembling. But I thought we could work through this, she insisted, her voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. I shook my head, my resolve hardening with each passing moment. I can't keep pretending that everything's okay when it clearly isn't. I said, my voice tinged with frustration. I deserve better than this, and so do you. And with that, I stood up from the table and walked out the door, leaving Hannah alone with her thoughts. As I made my way down the street, the weight of my decision hung heavy on my shoulders, but deep down, I knew that it was the right choice. Our relationship had run its course, and it was time for both of us to move on. The decision to end things with Hannah weighed heavily on my heart, but I knew it was necessary for both of us to find closure and move forward with our lives. As I packed my belongings and prepared to leave our shared apartment for the last time, a sense of finality settled over me. Hannah sat on the couch, her eyes red-rimmed from crying as I gathered my things. I'm sorry, she said softly, her voice barely audible above the sound of moving boxes being taped shut. I paused, turning to look at her. I'm sorry too, I replied, my voice thick with emotion. But I think it's for the best. She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I just wish things could have been different, she said, her voice filled with regret. I felt a pang of sadness at her words, but I knew that there was no going back. Me too, I admitted, my voice tinged with sorrow, but sometimes things just don't work out the way we want them to. With a heavy heart, I finished packing my things and made my way to the door. Hannah followed me, her eyes pleading for one last chance. Can't we try to work things out? She asked, her voice trembling. I hesitated, the weight of her words hanging heavy in the air. But deep down, I knew that our relationship had reached its end. I don't think so, I said finally, my voice tinged with sadness. I think it's better for both of us if we go our separate ways. And with that, I walked out the door, leaving Hannah behind with her thoughts. As I made my way down the street, the weight of my decision lifted from my shoulders, replaced by a sense of peace and closure. Our relationship may have ended, but I knew that it was the right choice for both of us. And as I looked towards the future, I felt a glimmer of hope that someday we would both find the happiness and fulfillment we deserved. Leaving behind the remnants of our failed relationship, I found myself standing at a crossroads, uncertain of what lay ahead, but determined to move forward. With each passing day, the pain of the breakup began to dull, replaced by a sense of clarity and purpose. As I settled into my new apartment, surrounded by boxes yet to be unpacked, I couldn't help but feel a sense of liberation. The weight of the past had been lifted from my shoulders, and I was free to chart my own course, free from the constraints of a relationship that no longer served me. One evening, as I sat alone in my new living room, the phone rang, breaking the silence. I hesitated before answering, unsure of who it could be. "Hello," I said, my voice cautious. "Hey, it's me," came Hannah's voice from the other end of the line. "I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing." I felt a surge of emotions at the sound of her voice, but I pushed them aside, determined to move forward with my life. "I'm doing okay," I replied, my voice steady but tinged with sadness. "Just taking things one day at a time." There was a moment of silence before Hannah spoke again. "I miss you," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I felt a pang of longing at her words, but I knew that going back was not an option. "I miss you too," I admitted, my voice tinged with regret. "But I think it's better this way." And with that, we said our goodbyes and hung up the phone, leaving me alone with my thoughts once again. As I reflected on our conversation, I realized that I was finally ready to let go of the past and embrace the future with open arms. In the days that followed, I threw myself into new hobbies and experiences, eager to discover who I was outside of the confines of a relationship. And as I forged new connections and formed new friendships, I felt a sense of hope and optimism for what lay ahead. No longer weighed down by the ghosts of the past, I knew that I was finally free to pursue my dreams and live life on my own terms. And as I looked towards the horizon, I knew that the best was yet to come. Thank you for listening to the story to the end, and if you like it, please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel. Write in the comments what you